Sirago Gap cover for 2023. One of the things that we get asked frequently is who is covered. So I'm sure that you've contacted your BC. I must say my phone goes on a weekly basis asking me, can these people be covered? So I thought that this is an important thing for us to cover. So who is covered under one policy? Everybody on the same medical aid. So if they're on the same medical aid certificate, they can all belong to Sirago. So I had one of my brokers who managed to get 10 family members on a Benitez plan, and he asked me a good few times, are you sure they can all be covered? So whether it be parents or children, or we're not too concerned. We do also cover if there are two different medical aids, but then we restrict it to 2 adults and all their child dependents. So sometimes and we're not really concerned about who those adults are. It's normally husband and wife. I've got my 2 sons on the same gap cover. They're over the age of 21 and on their own medical aid. But sometimes it's because of affordability. The one spouse might need more cover than the other. But one of the things that I'm picking up quite a lot is that we do have one of the medical aids that allow children over 21, well, they always be our children, they're always our babies, but the children over 21 to pay child dependent rates until they're 26. So you know which scheme I'm talking about. But in our world, children are children until they are 21. Once they're 21, they are now adults. So if you've got one medical aid with an adult and a person who's over 21, those are 2 people. Unfortunately, then there can't be another child. But how do we actually cover children over 21? We send out a documentation or communication around the children over 21. This is really just a reminder so that if your children have gone onto their own medical aid, that they do have cover. So if they're on the same medical aid certificate still, they can remain on the Sirago policy. If they're over 21 and they are full-time students, they've gone onto their own policy. Sometimes it's a little bit more cost-effective. They've gone onto their own onto their own medical aid. We will then cover them under the parents' policy. So that's as long as they are full-time students until they're 27. If your darling is over 21 and they're on their own medical aid, whether they are lying on the couch and they're doing nothing, or they are earning $1 million, they then have to have their own policy. All right. Remember that the age of the policy holder determines the age band. All right. So remember that if we have beneficiaries, that doesn't matter if we've got beneficiaries that are over 21. If I'm under 65, the policy will incept in the under 65 band and will stay in the under 65 band. If you transfer from another service provider to us, and the client was under 65 when they incepted their policy, they subsequently have turned 65, they will remain in the under 65 band with us. Right, just a quick one on underwriting. So there are some brokers that have underwriting concessions. We've got an amazing underwriting concession at the moment until the end of December. Please take advantage of that. But in general, new business, no previous cover or break-in cover, 3-month general waiting period, 10 months on pre-existing conditions only. And then we have what I call the high claimers. High claimers, these are things that sometimes people want to go onto medical aid or they want to go onto a gap cover because they know that there are going to be shortfalls. So in the first 6 months, there's no cover. So it's excluded in the first 6 months. And the next 4 months, there's only 50%, we will only pay 50% of the claim. And here is the list. So you can see that's a few children things, hysterectomy, unless there's malignancy, back, neck, spine, and joint related procedures, unless it's an accident. 10-month waiting period for pregnancy and confinement from inception of the policy until the end of month 10. If baby goes where, we don't pay. All right, so we're not worried about whether the mommy didn't know she was pregnant, she didn't want to be pregnant, not too concerned about that. No cover in, it's a huge, um, uh, a huge claim for us. 6 months on accidental death in the premium waivers, 3 months on initial cancer diagnosis, and 12 months on all pre-existing cancer-related treatments. Transferring from another service provider to us. So we're getting quite a few of these. I've got an amazing broker who in the last month has actually transferred over 100 policies, one policy at a time. So if they had a cover with their previous provider for at least 12 months or more, we only impose a 3-month period, 3-month waiting period on additional benefits. Those are the ones that they didn't enjoy on their previous service provider and they're now enjoying with us, 3 months. If it's an apples for apples transfer, we will, there are no waiting periods. If your client has had a gap cover with a previous provider for less than 12 months, there's a 3-month waiting period, and then they will sit the balance of waiting periods that were imposed by their previous gap provider. Right, now we're going on to the meat and potatoes, the 2023 benefits. Just quickly, the overall annual limit. The overall annual limit is the maximum that we're allowed to pay in the year from the 1st of January to the end of December. Okay, so it's per beneficiary per year. The overall annual limit is increasing to 191,000 Rand from the 1st of April. This is because of demarcation. So it's not a separate amount from 1st of January to the end of March, and then another amount from the 1st of April to the end of the year. If they claim up to the end of March and they use the whole overall annual limit, they will remain on the 183, and thereafter they'll only have the balance. So all in all, a maximum of 191,000 Rand in the calendar year. So we divide our benefits into in-hospital benefits. That is bed and bangle. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion as to when it's in hospital and when it's out of hospital. Emergency room is out of hospital. As soon as they get their bed and bangle, whether it's a stay or a day procedure, it comes from the in-hospital benefits category. Out of hospital benefits, this generally comes from savings. Sometimes if it's a traditional plan, it might come from a benefit. We'll chat about those a little later. Our cancer benefits, and then our value added benefits. So we're going to kick off with the gap cover or shortfall cover. So this is the difference between what the service provider charges in hospital and what the medical aid pays. So if the medical aid pays the first 100%, on the ultimate, we cover an additional 500%. If they cover 200, we still cover an additional 500% on top of the medical aid rate. They have to cover the first 100 or 200%. On the plus, we cap that at 600. The assist, we cap it at 600. On the gap light, we pay up to 250% to a maximum of 300% together with the medical aid. And the gap only is gap only. We have no other benefits. So it's 200% to a max of 300%. So I'm going to go back to the BMI. BMI is body mass index. Body mass index is when you're overweight or underweight. So we pay for BMI codes 0018 and 0019. This is generally when the service provider, like your anaesthetist and your surgeon, charges more because the client is at a higher risk. They might pay more for, they might charge a little bit more for medication. You know, they always ask you, how tall are you and how much do you weigh? So across the board, we will cover it if it is related to illness or it is related to pregnancy. However, if it is lifestyle related, if the people have got high BMI because of or low BMI, in fact, we can't discount it, but it is normally high BMI, we only cover it on the ultimate option. So this year we had a claim limit and we had a sublimit, and we've taken away that claim limit for BMI away. So it's up to the overall annual limit. Right, the next benefit is robotic surgery. Folks, if you've got some miracle cure for this, Martin alluded to the fact that this is the last 2 weeks that we've been on the road. I've actually haven't had a voice for the last 7 weeks. And I've taken medication, I've got pills, I've all the things. If you've got something, some miracle cure, I'd be most grateful to hear. Right, the next thing is robotic surgery. So robotic surgery is becoming increasingly popular. What happens is that the doctor sits at a computer or at the machinery, and it looks like he plays TV games. There's a machine who actually does the work for him. He doesn't get his hands dirty. This machinery belongs to the hospital, and the hiring of the machinery appears on the hospital bill. So we're seeing a lot with prostate surgery, and orthopedics is creeping in. We will pay up to 19,000 Rand and a sublimit of 35,000 Rand. We've taken away the claim limit. Robotic surgery on the plus, 6,000 Rand per claim and 18,000 Rand sublimit. Bella, I'm going to turn my camera off. That might help with a little bit of the feedback. All right. And now that I've fiddled, now it's stopped. Oh, folks, sorry about this. Seems as though every time I start fiddling, it won't move on. All right, co-payment cover. So co-payments, when we were going around the country, we were actually just chatting about how the medical aids are getting far more expensive and the benefits are actually dwindling down. And, in most cases, it's becoming quite unaffordable. One of the ways that medical aids used to actually to cut their costs is by imposing co-payments. So we're now seeing co-payments that are charged as a rand amount and co-payments that are charged as a percentage. So rand amount is easy. You look at the brochure and you see if you go for a colonoscopy, it costs so much. If you go for a back operation, it costs so much. But the percentage are some of the options where probably they're trying to steer the people away from the options. So in some cases, it's a percentage of the entire cost of the procedure. So if you have 25% of the cost of maybe a 200 or a 300,000 Rand joint procedure, that can be quite a whack. So up until the end of this year, on the Ultimate and the Plus, there was actually a claim limit for percentages charged as a percentage. We are doing away with those for next year. So Ultimate and Plus, no claim limit for the percentage, co-payments charged as a percentage. We're keeping the claim amount on the assist and light, and we have a sublimit. So it's 11,000 Rand per claim on the assist, 42,000 Rand sublimit, whether it's a Rand or a percentage, and on the light, 7,500 Rand per claim, 25,000 Rand on the light. Right, the penalty fee. Penalty fee is if the client chooses to be on an option where they have to use a network. So sometimes it's actually stipulated that they, like for example, the Discovery, it's called the Delta option. However, there are some options where the network is actually embedded in the plan. So it doesn't tell you that they might not choose necessarily. And then remember, Discovery also has a day hospital network. So we are the market leaders where we will pay three penalty fee claims on the ultimate option at 14,000 Rand per claim. One claim on all the rest, 9.5 on the plus, 6 on the assist, and 5,000 Rand on the light. Day hospital, clinic, or in-room surgical procedures. These are procedures that should or would have been done in hospital, but either the doctor or the client have elected to do this in a day hospital, a clinic, or in rooms. So then the the client will have the same benefit entitlement as the rest of the policy. So if there is a penalty fee, we will pay according to the penalty fee. If there's a shortfall, we'll pay according to the shortfall, the additional 500% or the 250%, whatever it is, and then also the penalty fee, copayment, and the shortfall. PMB cover. So we don't cover PMBs. PMBs should be covered by the scheme. What we do cover is if the client elects to go out of the network, the scheme has stipulated that they've got to use a network provider and they go out of the network for a planned PMB. So we increased this to the overall annual limit on the assist, the light, and the gap only. Step down only on the ultimate option. This is only after stroke, cancer, or an accident. No knees, no backs, and this is when they've got a benefit on their medical aid. The medical aid benefit has been depleted and they still need further cover. We will pay up to another 11,000 Rand. So that's for step down, rehabilitation, or subacute facility. Hospital account shortfalls. So hospital account shortfalls, we pay in 3 ways. So normally, or way back when, you could tell your client that everything is covered in hospital and that just sometimes the service providers charge more than scheme rate. In this case, we will pay anything that is left on the hospital account. And that's not the only reason why, but that is one of the reasons why we always ask for the hospital account, whether it is an emergency room claim or it is a normal hospital admission. So anything on the hospital account up to 1,350 on the ultimate, and you can see the rest of the values across the board, nothing on light and gap only. And the second way is take-home medication. So this is take-home medication that the client has got to take out of their own pocket. If the scheme, if they pay 7-day supply, we don't pay that 7-day supply. If the doctor prescribes 10, we will pay the difference. Like Bonitas, they've got a rand amount. We will pay if there's an amount over and above the rand amount that they offer. But there is one medical aid that actually hands the client a script, and they've got to go and get it from their available savings. If they get that medication in the hospital dispensary, it forms part of the admission, and we'll pay up to that 1,350 Rand. Private ward, or what they call an executive suite. So private ward this year, if it's due to confinement, would be paid from the Sirago baby benefit. Private ward from next year will be paid for confinement, will be paid from this benefit. We pay up to 2,000 Rand only. Folks, I've seen huge claims. They are charging 3,600 Rand to upgrade to a private ward. The lady sits, or whoever it is, lies in bed or lies in the hospital for 3 days, and that's nearly a 10 grand. In fact, it's more than a 10 grand claim. We'll pay up to 2 grand on the 2,000 Rand on the ultimate, 1,000 Rand on the plus, and we've introduced 1,000 Rand private ward for the assist. Sublimit enhancer. So sublimit enhancer, this is when there's a sublimit on the medical aid for any of the following. So I think we are the market leaders in that we pay sublimit enhancer on internal prosthesis, cochlear implants, and intraocular lenses, and MRI CT scans if there's a sublimit. So we've introduced cochlear implants. Remember that intraocular lenses, after cataracts, they do the one eye, they do the other eye. So what we've done is we've taken away the claim limit. And so we've got no sublimit. There was 100,000 Rand, 25,000 Rand, and 4 claims per policy. We've taken away the sublimit. We've taken away the number of claims. We've increased that limit slightly. On the plus, only for internal prosthesis and MRI CT scans, 11,500 Rand per claim, no claim limit again, and 30,000 Rand per policy. Out of hospital, day to day. So this is when it would either come from the available savings, or it comes from on a traditional plan, it would come from some basket of benefit. So the most important thing is that the client understands that there is no benefit if the savings or the benefit has been depleted. So if there's no contribution from the scheme, there's no contribution from us. If the client is on a hospital plan, there is no contribution from us unless it's I do know that there are some schemes where even though it's a hospital plan, they do have some day-to-day benefit. Then the last one is when they're in their self-payment gap. Self-payment gap is self-payment, not gap. Everybody sees gap and they think, oh, well, this is our time to claim. So only on the ultimate option, we've got the primary care benefit. This primary care benefit is for this year was consultation only. For next year, it's consultation, shortfall on consultation, and shortfall on any other services. That means over and above the medical aid rate. We've increased the claim amount quite considerably, 1,250 Rand per claim. Doesn't matter who claims and how many times they claim, but to a sublimit of 5,000 Rand. Our specialist consultation fees, we have not changed this at all. So this is 1,350 Rand, 6,500 Rand, but we've kept the claim limits here. And the plus is just slightly less. So remember, this is only on the consultation fee and only when the service provider charges more than scheme rate and there's a contribution from the scheme. Emergency room. So emergency room, I think, is an amazing benefit. So we have a sublimit of 12,000 Rand on the ultimate, 9 on the plus, 6.5 on the assist, and 4.5 on the light. On the ultimate and the plus, you can claim in 3 ways. So the first way is accident and trauma. Accident and trauma is your blood, guts, and bone. Blood, guts, and bone, it's ICD-10 code driven, so it would be anything that that requires emergency treatment. When it's regards illness, emergency illness is outside of consultation hours. Out of consultation hours is between 6 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday to Friday, the whole of Saturday, Sunday, and public holidays. So if the beneficiary is 9 and above, we will pay up to 2,000 Rand, 1,000 Rand on the plus, and we'll chat about the assist and the light in a second. Child emergency illness for 8 and under, we will pay up to the overall annual limit. So all these benefits, we pay whether or not the medical aid pays. So if the medical aid pays for emergency room, we reimburse. If the medical aid does not pay, we pay the claim to the client according to the benefit entitlement, and the client will pay the service provider. On the assist and the light, what we've done is that we've changed. This year it was emergency illness and it was gap portion only, which means over and above medical aid rate. We've taken away that, we've replaced it with child emergency illness for beneficiaries that are 9 and under, up to the sublimit, and we've taken away emergency illness for beneficiaries that are 9 and above. So unfortunately, no benefit there. If the client is more than 30 kilometers from the hospital, and I'm expecting that the audience today, there are a lot of you who have got clients that are away more than 30 kilometers away from a hospital. What happens in this case is that the client can go to the GP facility. So again, it is ICD-10 code driven. They can go to a GP facility. Sometimes there are special clinics. I know out in some of the more remote towns, and they can claim from this benefit. Please, will you just be specific about this benefit when you submit, so that we don't have a little bit of a backward and forward. Preventative care, appliance and trauma counseling. So preventative care, so there's got to be a benefit on the medical aid for preventative care or for screening benefits. All those benefits are in your brochure. We will pay over and above the benefit amount up to 1,250 on the ultimate, 800 Rand on the plus, to 8,000 Rand sublimit on the ultimate. So this means that if, for example, the woman goes for a mammogram and they charge more than the benefit amount. So recently I've seen where the service provider has charged more than double for a mammogram and bone density testing, which I think is quite ridiculous. In the year that the woman qualifies for the benefit, in other words, over 40, and it's every alternative year, we will pay that shortfall. But if there is a case where they've used up their benefit, so the mammograms are probably the easiest to use. The woman has gone for a mammogram this year, and the service provider or the radiologist has suggested that they go, or the doctor suggested that they go for another mammogram next year, just so that they can monitor what's going on. The following year, the scheme is not going to pay anything. We're going to pay up to 500 Rand per claim, 2 claims per policy. So that's when the medical aid doesn't pay anything. So we've had that benefit on the ultimate for this year. For next year, we are going to add that to the plus option. Appliance benefit. So again, we've got a list of appliances. Unfortunately, this is not Zimmer frames and crutches and moon boots and things. Hearing aids, the ones that we do cover, hearing aids, wheelchairs, CPAP machine, and there's a bit of a long list. We pay over and above the benefit amount, as long as there's a contribution from the scheme. So on the ultimate and plus, we do not have a per claim limit. There's only a sublimit. On the assist, there is a 1,200 Rand per claim limit and 3,600 Rand sublimit on the assist. Trauma counseling. So trauma counseling after a traumatic event. So after COVID, we actually saw quite a few deaths, and I'm sure that there was a lot of claiming for the trauma counseling. So this is whether or not the medical aid pays. We pay the client to pay a registered practitioner for trauma counseling. This year we had a separate benefit for under 13 and under and 14 and above. And for next year, we are not going to have an age limit. We've taken it back to just 950 Rand per claim. We also do not have a claim limit. So this year we had a claim limit. For next year, if there's one person who needs all the trauma counseling, they can use up that whole benefit. And the plus is just slightly lower amounts. Right, our cancer benefits. So Sirago only pays cancer benefits once the benefit on the medical aid has been depleted. So we don't pay anything within the benefit. The first benefit, the cancer copayment benefit, this is when the scheme pays a Rand amount, and thereafter they impose a copayment for all further treatment. So this is like your Discovery Momentum. We see that Discovery has increased their Rand amount for oncology after many, many years. And I also noticed that Benitez has actually brought in this co-payment benefit. So we'll no longer pay out of the boosts. For next year, we'll pay out of the co-payment benefit. So remember that there's nothing. So what happens, what I've seen a lot of this year is that the schemes are paying up to 80% within the benefit if the client does not use a service provider. We're also seeing for biological drugs that there is a pretty big scheme that is now, whereas before they didn't pay anything for these drugs, they are now imposing either 50 or 50% co-payment or a 20% co-payment for the drugs. The cancer boost is when there's a Rand amount for oncology, and once the Rand amount has been depleted or that it's been exhausted or the whole benefit has been used, the client has got to pay all further treatment. So I call this the 100% plan. I call the copayment the 20% plan, and this is the 100% plan. We pay 100% of all further treatment. Remember, it's as long as there is, it's part of the treatment protocol. On the assist, we have a per claim limit on copayment, and the cancer boost, a per benefit limit. Okay, and that's to the overall annual limit. Breast reconstruction after mastectomy, only on the ultimate and the plus. So after mastectomy, we've increased the amount for the breast reconstruction to 500% over and above the scheme rate on the plus and the ultimate. And we've also increased the rand amount should the scheme not pay at all for the reconstruction of the unaffected breast. So what they say, it's not medically necessary, and how we feel is that we do think that it is actually necessary for the reconstruction, a simultaneous reconstruction. Value-added benefits. So these value-added benefits do not accumulate to the overall annual limit. Okay, so all the rest up until now will accumulate to that 191,000. These do not accumulate. On the ultimate plus and gap assist, we have the premium waivers, the gap cover premium waiver. The trigger is death or total permanent disability of the policy holder. If the policyholder dies or is permanently disabled, we hold the credit for the gap cover premiums for a 6-month period. So we have decreased that on the ultimate and plus. This is due to legislation, and what we will do is we will review this is all under advisement. We'll review this at a slightly later stage. Our medical scheme premium waiver. Again, death or total permanent disability of the policyholder. We've increased that amount slightly, and we pay out for a 6-month period, from the month after the policyholder passes away. Please remember that we only pay for the medical aid of the policyholder. So if there are 2 medical aids, in the case of dual membership, two medical aids. If the policyholder passes away, there would only be child dependents, and unfortunately, the policy, the policy falls away, and generally the medical aid falls away. Accidental death, we've increased those slightly, and guys, I hope you're not selling gap cover on accidental death. We pay out up to those rand amounts as long as the client didn't die accidentally themselves. Right. We're continuing on to initial cancer diagnosis. Initial cancer diagnosis is the first time that the client is ever diagnosed with cancer while on any kind of cancer while on the Sirago policy. So we are the only service provider that I know of that pays from a stage 1 cancer. All the others pay from a stage 2 cancer, and we pay that 27,500 rand. It's increased slightly with the 17,000 rand out in a lump sum. The only cancer that we exclude is skin cancer if it is treatable. So if they have a skin cancer and it's removed, remember that there is there's no treatment thereof. If the skin cancer metastasizes and it actually and it spreads, we will then pay out on that. Sirago Baby. This is a fantastic benefit. So from the 1st of January next year, instead of what we did this year is what we were paying out in claims, from next year, we're going to pay out a lump sum. So we pay them a lump sum of 2,000 Rand on the ultimate, 1,800 Rand on the plus, 1,500 on the assist and the light. So we will pay out if the mommy registers her baby within 90 days. All right, so those are the, we need the birth certificate or the addition of dependents within 90 days. Medicare, So Medcare is the alternative dispute resolution service, and the free service on Sirago is for PMB claims that exceed 9,000 Rand. So we've reduced that amount from 12,000 to 9,000 Rand. And Martin will chat a little bit about the Medcare benefits just a little later. Right, we're going on to the exact cover. The overall annual limit is increasing to 140,000 Rand per beneficiary per year from the 1st of January. So it started on the 1st of January and it increases on the 1st of January. That's a maximum that we're allowed to pay per person per year for any of these exact benefits. So exact cover, I'm just going to go back for a second. Exact cover is a list of procedures, a defined list of procedures that we will pay up to a rand amount only if it's an exclusion on the medical aid. So we know that some of the capitated plans have got a long list of exclusions. And when I put up our list, you'll see that many of them coincide. Not only those, but there are other medical aids, particularly those that are a little less comprehensive, where they have there are some exclusions that have crept in. So we know that means that these plans are not designed for those people. What is sad is that these less comprehensive options, there is a huge uptake because of affordability. And so we're going to have a little squiz at the list in a second, but our underwriting is slightly different because we are having somebody who has a very limited budget. So they're on a capitated or an income-based plan because they've got a limited budget. Now we're adding another amount on top of it. So this is an alternative to them upgrading and then having to add gap cover on anyway. So we find that in this space, it would be a great idea to have all your clients covered on the exact if there are exclusions. But sadly, it's really only those that that need the cover that that set aside this amount of money to cover. So our underwriting, there's a 10-month general waiting period. And there's a 12-month waiting period on all pre-existing conditions related to that exact list. Okay, so that's different to our normal gap cover underwriting. Transferring is exactly the same 3-month waiting period on the additional benefits of the exact list if they've had cover for 12 months or more, and for less, 3 months on the additional benefit categories, and then the balance of the waiting periods that were imposed by their previous service provider. So the exact cover, this is our complete list. Just want to tell you that we've decreased 2 amounts, arthroscopic and the back and neck surgery slightly. The rest have remained exactly the same, and we've added skin disorders, including benign growths and lymphoma, non-cancerous breast conditions and endoscopic procedures, which is fantastic. We've also the emergency casualty benefit, just to explain to you that that's for accidents and trauma, that's your blood, guts, and bone. And children under 8 years old can use a maximum of 4,000 Rand of that 6,000 Rand limit for if it's not covered at all by the scheme. Right, so the exact can be purchased as a standalone product. We do have some brokers that actually that market that on top of the ultimate, on top of the plus, on top of the assist, which is fantastic if they can afford it. There are some, they want all those comprehensive benefits, but if they are a little cash strapped, we have got the exact with gap and copay. So that's the combo where we will pay for the exact list, or we will pay, so for the exact list, if it is an unrelated to the exact list, gap cover up to 300% to a max of 400%. And so that's the shortfall in hospital, co-pays 7,000 Rand per claim and 21,000 Rand per sublimit. Our value-added benefits, these, remember, don't accumulate to the overall annual limit. Gap cover premium waiver for 6 months and accidental death on the policy holder only. Right, so I'm going to leave you with a corporate cover. So corporate cover is becoming quite popular. We have decreased the minimum group size to 10 paying policyholders. Please, if you have any, this is not restricted just to the corporate brokers. This is also for any of you that have a group. Remember that it can be voluntary or compulsory. Please will you direct all your quotes through your BC, and it'll get to Natalie, who is our corporate consultant. The benefit entitlement of all these products is exactly the same as the rest of our retail. So it's just a corporate ultimate, a corporate plus, a corporate assist, corporate exact with Gap and Copay. We have a look at each of the group and we premium rate them according to the demographics, and then we'll assist you to put that cover on. So I'm going to pass it on to Martin again, and he's going to chat a little bit about this next slide. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Candice. Well done. So you're off the hook now. You can get some recovery. So, guys, just a few things. Candice mentioned BMI. If you're short for your weight, if that was the case, I would be 7 foot tall, because apparently BMI, the ratios there in terms of the actual thresholds are somewhat intimidating for even people that are slightly well in sort of over the limits. So I think that's an important thing. Medicare, I just want to share with you some Medicare. So we've had some tremendous success this year in terms of Medicare. So the Medicare is a VAP. Effectively, in a PMB environment, if we get a claim and we register the claim and we denote that it is actually a PMB claim that the scheme is obligated to pay, we repudiate the claim as a consequence thereof. What we do have in place is a product called Medcare. It's a value-added services. And you are, through the Medcare website and the Medcare interactions, able to challenge it with the scheme, challenge it through the council of medical schemes or whatever the case may be. At the end of that process, if it come back and it's deemed not to be PMB, Sirago will still honor the claim at that point in time. However, we have to be cognizant from day one that we cannot just pay a PMB claim, because then we seem to be doing the role of a medical scheme, which obviously will then affect our accreditation in terms of a short-term insurer. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I think what's really important in terms of the benefits that Candice has been through at the moment, is the more time I spend on the road with the BCs and with our sort of advisors and our intermediaries and so on and so forth, there are probably 5 major benefit categories that I think we need to focus on in terms of when we do analysis and when we look at the product and the value proposition. I'm very confident that our value proposition from an A to Z perspective is market leading. I'm very confident that our value proposition in terms of Rand benefit ratio is very strong in terms of what it is. But I think, just coming back to those 5 things, you've got to look at the gap cover, how gap cover is affected in that. I can share with you that 82% of all our claims are the difference between what the medical scheme pays and the doctor charges. Copayment is the second thing you need to be cognizant about. The third thing would obviously be your Sublimit enhancer. I think that's a really good benefit and a benefit category, or benefit category in our world that we've enhanced for next year. Cancer cover goes without saying, and then obviously the emergency room. So for me, those would be the 5 focal areas in terms of having a look at a gap cover solution. In terms of being, from my perspective, again, slightly myopic and slightly obviously jaundiced, but in terms of providing best advice. This slide talks about medical schemes explained. So you might have come across a chap by the name of Andre Jacobs in your walk in the healthcare space. Andre has written this book. It's a very, very easy reading book. It's good for us as that work in this particular market segment, but it also helps Joe public actually understand a whole host of issues within the medical scheme space. So it's not just about benefits; it's how they pull together, what the Medical Scheme Act comprises of, what people should be focused on, the rights of members, the waiting periods, and LJPs. How are those sort of affected in terms of things? And obviously, looking at the role of the healthcare intermediary. So we are going to endeavour to share this book with all our policyholders as part of our renewal process at year end. If we don't get it right then, we will make it available on our website where people can go and download it. But we certainly think it's a really good practical reading for consumers in particular to try and understand what it is. Candice, let's go into the potato. When you're ready, Candice.
Sorry, Martin. Every time I mute or something, it's
That's wonderful. So anyway, the meat and the potatoes is actually looking at the premium. So that's our premiums for 2023. Those are our under 64 premium rates. So it shows you the difference between 2022 and 2023. It goes to each option: Ultimate Plus, Gap, Gap Light, Gap Only, Gap Exact, Exact with Gap and Copay. It takes you through individual and family. That there, ladies and gentlemen, constitutes around about a 5.1, 5.2 weighted average increase across this particular benefit in age category. Sorry, not benefit category, but the age category. And again, I come back to the point that I think our value proposition in terms of rand benefit ratio is particularly strong. Candice, if we can share the next one. The next slide is for the above 65s, and again, we're going to have to dip out and dip back in. But this here shows a weighted average of around about 8.3% for the above 65s. Again, commensurate with what we are experiencing in terms of claims. So the guys that are sort of Grant Brietzky's age and all that kind of stuff that are starting to go through the process of claiming and claiming high and all those kind of things, they, we're experiencing those claims. So that's one of the reasons that I think is really important from a demarcation perspective. That's given the gap cover market an opportunity to be able to manage it, manage I suppose the risk factors a little bit differently. So that's really what that's all about. Again, you see gap only, and gap is not available to above 65s. But that there. So as a weighted average, Candice, if you can go into that, the weighted average portfolio for Sirago for 2023 is a comfortable 6.2%. We're confident that we're in the range. Again, we can't be all things to everybody. We're not the biggest, we're not the smallest, we're not the sort of but we're a little bit boutiquey, guys, and I keep on coming back to this. It's a place where you want to shop, and I think if we continue to position ourselves on that basis, we will see a difference in that. And so I'm very, very confident and comfortable to present to you today that particular increase based on the significant changes in terms of value proposition that we've put into the benefit categories as well. Candice, the next slide. So any cyclists in amongst us? I see we got in excess of about 100 people on the presentation this morning. So, if you are a cyclist, please, the first Saturday in September 2023, please join us. We cycle from Knysna, from George to Knysna. It's called the Seven Passes. It's all in the back roads, and it's a beautiful day and it's a beautiful morning. We look after you guys. After that, we obviously get together in Knysna at the end venue, and we share a little bit of insights in terms of our business offline. We obviously spend some time with you guys on a slightly different basis in terms of getting to know you and you getting to know us, all around some red grape juice and some gold nectar, and we encourage you. So you will get an invite from us to put that in your diary, but if you can diarize it now for the time being, that will be great. We would love to spend some time with you. You can see the guys there, obviously all kitted out in our Sirago kit, and that's one of the things that we do. But it's a really good opportunity for us. We also then put back into the local community, and we've invested in a Owata house there called Taniqua. We've obviously provided them with some mechanical beds and the like thereof. So that's part of our corporate social sort of responsibility in that region, because we value the region and because we go and play in the region. So that's what it's all about for us. So I want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time with us this morning. We've just been on in exactly an hour. We appreciate it. Any questions, drive it through the consultants in your respective regions, and we wish you well and lots of well during the renewal process of 2022 into 2023. If there's anything I and my team can do for you, please reach out to us. We'd be more than willing to engage. Have a good day, folks, and be blessed.